This week, in Driving Passions, we drive two of the world's greatest Porsche 911s. Steve Cropley tells us what changed his mind about MPVs. And Andrew Frankel gets to grips with the Le Mans-winning McLaren F1 GTR. Porsche 911, ever since its birth in the early 60s, has been one of the most versatile sports cars in the world. From urban commuter car, past road-going supercar, to one of the world's most enduring and successful competition cars, it just didn't seem to matter what new skill the 911 turned its hand to. It always excelled, be it on the Paris-Dakar Rally or as a hugely popular one-mate racer. But it was as the world's most practical supercar that it really found its vocation. And, of them all, one was the best of the lot.
In 1973, Porsche had just brought out this, the 911 RS Lightweight Carrera. Born as a road-going version of a racing car, no one had ever seen anything quite like it before.
It took all the things that 911s were meant to do well and did them even better. It was prettier, more agile, more fun, and faster than any 911 before, and most since.
Not only was it very, very fast, it was also extremely beautiful too, and thanks to Porsche's fantastic engineering, totally reliable as well.
Above all, people loved it for its lack of compromise. It had a stripped-out, no-nonsense interior, racing suspension, and absolutely no sound deadening at all. It also had an ability to devour roads and tracks that even the Ferraris and Lamborghinis of the day had a job matching.
In no time at all, it became both a fabulously successful racing car and an extraordinarily desirable road car. No wonder. With a top speed of over 150 miles an hour and a 0 to 60 time of 5 seconds or less, it went even better than it looked. Back in 1973, no one could quite believe it. And now, a generation after Porsche killed off the old RS, they're building another one. Like its ancestor, it's lighter and more powerful too, making it much, much quicker.
Built on exactly the same principle as the original RS, today's car achieves its blistering performance by not simply increasing power, but also by cutting weight.
You might think that after all these years, this 911 RS Carrera would feel a bit too tame, perhaps too soft, compared to that extraordinary 70s wild child whose reputation it finds itself having to live up to. But no, this RS has almost all the spirit of its illustrious predecessor. With a 300 horsepower, 3.8-litre engine and over 100 kilograms less weight to carry around than a regular 911, this RS will get from 0 to 60 miles an hour in just 4.7 seconds and carry on to a top speed of about 172 miles per hour. With specially stiffened suspension and ultra-fat tyres too, it's pretty smart round the corners as well.
In essence, it is all and more that you would expect from a latter-day RS. It feels light and agile, and will tolerate being thrown around on the test track without biting back too hard. It is a rewarding, fascinating, and very special car, and to my mind, the finest 911 you can buy today. But does that make it a better car than the old RS of 1973?
Choosing between them is easy. This RS is a truly great car. It's fast and it's involving, and to anybody who doesn't think that fun cars are made these days, take a ride in one of these. You'll realize they are.
But the old RS fights it off with ease, proving still more memorable. If you like, it's the difference between one of today's great road cars and one of the greatest cars of all time.
This is the joyrider at work. Terrifying, incredibly dangerous, and stupid. The Joyrider is the most high-profile, most public car thief, impossible to miss. Far more deadly in financial terms is the professional. Discreet, fast and effective, the professional will stop at nothing to take the vehicle he wants. If that means using a recovery truck, so be it. Even the most sophisticated alarm systems will prove worthless. Between the Joyrider and the professional, there's the casual car thief. He's usually in a hurry, often as not, on his way to another crime like a break-in. If the car gets wrecked in the process, that's tough. The police must tackle these criminals as best they can. The Joyrider doesn't care whose life he risks, and even if they do catch the criminal, the end result is always a wrecked car for the owner. Cars are hidden away so effectively that every year 30% of all stolen vehicles disappear without trace. All too often, the police are left in the dark.
Thousands of cars are taken each year in Kent. It's generally an opportunist crime, and we need car owners to help us solve the problem. With new technology such as tracking devices, we hope it will act as a deterrent to the criminal and, more importantly, help us to catch them red-handed.
Tracker is a sophisticated detection system that literally tracks down stolen cars. It's a system that has already proved its worth in the USA, where it's called LoJack. But how does it work? The basic principle of the tracker system is a radio transponder which is hidden secretly in the motorist's car. As soon as the motorist discovers the theft, he reports it to both the police and the tracker company. They then send a nationwide signal addressed uniquely to the unit in the stolen car. As soon as the unit receives that signal, it itself starts transmitting. Any police car with a tracker computer will be able to lock onto that signal and locate the stolen car. Had this car been on the tracker network, events would have turned out like this.
Hello, I'd like to report my car's been stolen.
Once both the police and the tracker network operations centre is contacted, the centre then verifies the details and activates the tracker unit in the car. Tracker allows a trained police officer to locate the stolen car, whether it's hidden or on the move. There's no indication on the car itself that the police are now aware of its location. The astonishing power that Tracker can give the police in their battle on car crime is well supported by the facts from the USA, where as many as 94% of all stolen vehicles are safely recovered.
Clark was driving north on the M6. She overtook a man in the central lane who refused to move over. A high-speed nightmare ensued as the man harried her again and again.
When he put his lights on behind me, I was starting to get frightened. I was wondering, what was going to happen next. Then when he slammed his brakes on in front of me, everything just went. I lost control of the car, hit the central reservation, spun back across the motorway and flipped into the ditch. The police afterwards, when I was sitting in the car, said to me, had it been a petrol car, I would have blown up. It was that serious.
Melanie's attacker was never caught, and no one knows exactly how common road rage is. There are no official statistics, but all the experts agree it's getting worse.
In the 70s, the major problem on the roads was drink driving. In the 80s, it was excessive speeding. In the 90s, it's road rage. And it's not just people getting out of their cars or shaking their fists at other people. People are actually being killed.
Road rage didn't kill Alan Cobb last year on the M27, but it easily could have when another driver refused to move over.
I've overtaken him on the inside. I've accelerated up to 70 miles an hour. At the end of this intersection, he swung in front of me, forcing me to stop, jumped out of his car, ranting and raving, face distorted with rage. He's then produced a screwdriver and stabbed me in the face with it after breaking the window.
This expert on stress has actually stopped driving because he's so frightened of his own and other people's road rage.
It's a regression to the more primitive man, the fight-flight response. You put the pedal to the metal and you go from 0 to 10,000 BC in the sort of space it takes your car to go up to 70 miles an hour. You feel completely overwhelmed by rage. The other person is your enemy, and what you want to do is to attack and kill them.
60% of drivers admit to some form of aggressive behaviour. Danny Ivanek admits to getting out of his car and punching a fellow driver. He says in self-defence.
I've gone as far as to, like, if someone's cut me up, I've gone as far as to drive along beside inches away from their car and cut them up again. And you almost think to yourself, lessons, you know, we're even.
If angered by other drivers, Danny admits he changes.
You can feel yourself getting more and more wound up, and to the point where you think, that's it now, you know, you've lost your fuse. You're in a different world, aren't you? You know, you're mad now, you're mad.
Drivers who follow too closely are one of the main causes of road rage. Drivers who try to overtake on the inside are another.
Yep.
Many animals do react aggressively to overcrowding, and man the driver is probably no different.
Experts believe that road rage is getting worse because traffic congestion's on the increase, and the number of cars on Britain's roads is actually going to double over the next 25 years. That's a lot more rats in each cage, a lot more frustration and anger.
The government is now under pressure to act against road rage, just as it did against drink driving.
In part 2, Steve Cropley is converted to MPVs.
Well-being, they call it. You simply enjoy sitting up high. Unsurprisingly for a delivery van, the driving factors are excellent in this car. Like most of the current crop of MPVs, it's got very good steering, very nicely weighted and quite fast. And the ride comfort's another surprise. Today's car designers take just as much trouble with MPVs as they do with ordinary cars, and the MPV has the additional advantage that it's a very tall car, so there's accommodation for the wheel to move up and down generously and give the car a very supple, soft ride. And because you're sitting up high, you're quite remote from the road noise, so it seems very quiet in here. And the combination of all those things make you think that you're in a big-name luxury car. When you hit the motorway, the luxury car associations continue. The ride is flat and quiet. The wind noise in this Galaxy is very low. There's enough performance for easy overtaking, even when you load it up. And the Galaxy has a big fuel tank, so it's great for cruising long distances. This is such an interesting car. So comfortable, so sweet to drive. I was one of the people that used to reckon that MPVs were nothing better than dressed-up delivery vans, but now I'm quite sure I could live with one long term.
The world of motor racing is not always as glamorous as you might think. Even at the top level, testing is essential. To see what really goes on behind the scenes, we joined GTC Motorsport during a tyre test at a small racetrack called Pembrey in West Wales. Each time the McLaren F1 GTR racing car comes in, engineers from tyre suppliers Michelin take dozens of readings for pressure and temperature, talking to the driver to find out how the car is feeling, making numerous adjustments and sending the car out again. While Pembrey is too small for a car as powerful as this 636 brake horsepower McLaren to race on, it's great for working the tyres, especially in today's alternating wet and dry conditions. Formula One driver Mark Blundell brings the McLaren in one more time, this time to talk to the GTC team about his views on the car. This is important as he is shortly to drive this very car in the Le Mans 24-hour race. Back in the pits, the men from Michelin are busily changing tyres and rims, constantly checking pressures and readings. In one 2-day test, a McLaren needs a lot of tyres and a fair few tools too. The GTC mechanics have their work cut out too. The F1 has thousands of parts and all will have to perform flawlessly if the car is to survive a test as grueling as Le Mans and emerge intact. Even the wheels and tyres are looked after with the greatest possible care, each one being carefully marked before being tested to destruction. But soon the car is ready to go out again. And what's more, they've agreed to let me have a go. But first, Mark Blundell talks through the controls.
We've just slimmed the car down, so we only need the necessities. We're still using the wiper systems, the headlight system, rain lamps, heated screen, which is all needed in a 24-hour race. We've got fuses here which could be changed if the car breaks down. We then go to bits and pieces what we're adding on inside the race cars. Radio communication, information on the dash so we can go through and check water, oil, gearbox temperature, lap time. And we then got acknowledgements for the dash as well, so if something does come up, we can acknowledge the fact that there's something wrong and maybe radio back to the pits. That's about it. Everything else is the same as a road car.
Just warming the car up now, getting heat into the tyres, brakes, also into the gearbox, into the transmission. Conditions are not ideal by any means. Weather is very damp, it's been raining, and the circuit's not 100% dry. Just accelerating down the straight now. 4th gear, 204 kilometers. On the brakes, fast 4th gear right-hander. Exit 165. On the brakes hard, 230 k's down into 2nd gear. On the pedal hard. Right-hander. Left-hander again, 3rd gear. Through the apex point. Accelerating up to 4th gear. Tuck the car into the right-hander. Balance the car on the throttle. Back down again through the gearbox, down to 2nd. Drop the speed down to 80 kilometers, accelerate hard, 2nd, 3rd, 4th gear.
Well, that should have warmed the car up enough for me. After a brief chat with the team, it's time for me to climb aboard and try my luck.
Well, they're on their way.
Getting into the central driving position is not exactly easy, but once on board, it's surprisingly comfortable. At first, it's a very alien atmosphere, and I drive knowing that all it will take is one false move and Britain's best chance of winning Le Mans would go up in smoke. On the move, the car looks $1 million, which is fortunate as it costs rather more. The engine is pulverizingly powerful and unbelievably loud even through my helmet. Cornering is a juggling trick between getting the heat into the slick tyres they need to work properly while avoiding the puddles and not overdoing it. Eventually, I get to grips with the car and start to enjoy the performance and handling. It feels not unlike a road-going McLaren, only noisier and even more urgent. It has the same light steering, the same rifle-bolt gear change. I do a couple of quicker laps, but soon my time is up and I'm signalled back to the pits. I arrive thankful more than anything else that the car and I are still both in one piece.
Well, I mean, there's just so much to learn. I thought it was bloody wonderful myself. It feels surprisingly like the road car. I thought it would be completely different.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's very obviously a very close relation of that.
Right.
I don't think it's any quicker than the road car in a straight line.
Yeah.
But that is at the absolute top of, you know, of what I've driven, really.
5 weeks later, this McLaren went to Le Mans. It crashed in the night, falling to 35th place, but recovering to 4th by the fall of the flag. Another GTR took overall victory.